Comrades, welcome to our platform today. My most sincere apologies. I have been away for some time. Had a number of engagements to attend to, so I couldn't spare time to share my views with you on a number of issues. Today I am addressing myself to a recurrent question in the minds of many. And that's the question of what is to be done to bring about a regime change in a manner that will preserve our country. And the strategy that many have zeroed on is non-violent civil disobedience. Now, according to me, non-violent civil disobedience falls in three broad categories. One, there is civil disobedience that is aimed at specific policy positions or pieces of legislation. For example, Martin Luther King's activities were aimed at the policy of segregation. Martin Luther King did not seek to overthrow the establishment or the government in Washington. He only sought to attract their attention to the question of segregation. Just like in Uganda, we've had a number of activities, civil, uprising, civil disobedience and demonstrations on questions like electoral reform. The second is spontaneous actions that are sparked off by specific incidents. Maybe the most prominent, I think, in recent history is the self-immolation of the vendor in Tunisia that sparked off the Arab Spring. Popular uprisings in many places have begun in that manner. And it is normally these spontaneous activities that actually then culminate into toppling regimes. Even in Libya, the Libyans did not go out to plan to overthrow Gaddafi. It was the arrest of the human rights lawyer Fatih Taber that actually sparked off the Libyan revolution. The third is planned activities aimed at regime change. For example, in Yugoslavia, the young people with their organization Otpo. We saw the Orange Revolution in Ukraine in the early 2000s. There was the Syria uprising, the uprising in Yemen, in Belarus, in Venezuela, and many other places. Now, all of these have met with varying degrees of success. And like I said, in Uganda, most of our activities have largely been of the first category. That we rise up, we demonstrate, we make ourselves heard on specific issues. We have not yet had a situation where we rise up expressly to go and storm the streets until the regime falls. We work for electoral reforms, like I said. We rise up to defend Mabera from being given away. The nearest we came towards bringing about regime change, I think, was during Walk to Work. But even then, Walk to Work was never expressly aimed at bringing about a regime change. It was more of highlighting the plight, the economic plight that many were going through. It was not about making the regime fall. So, the situation in which we find ourselves today, I think, does not allow us the luxury of now, trying to come up with activities aimed at, this or that policy. I think that we need to be bold enough and expressly state that we are going out until the regime goes. Now, to achieve that, it will not only be political actors, because for any meaningful change of government to happen and ensure that the fruits are not, hijacked by a clique of individuals, then the broad sections of society must be involved. Civil society must play a central role in all these activities. For example, in the DRC, the Catholic Church, under its organization, SENCO, played a very critical role in forcing Joseph Kabila to hand over power. The Catholic Church organized marches every Sunday after church service until the government concedes to handing over power. The men in the cassocks, the collar, led the charge. In Uganda, our churches shy away from such kind of action. They only limit themselves to condemning corruption and other so-called social evils that are expressly mentioned in the Bible. But the Bible also mentions oppression, speaks out against injustice. So it's like they tend to believe that if church people involve themselves in political questions, it is a sin. But do they worship a different God from that worshipped by the Congolese churches? Or are they saying the Catholic Church in Congo will go to hell? But here they hide under that, veil to avoid taking responsibility, to standing up to what they are supposed to do. The other critical group that must be on board is the labor unions. In Uganda, again, you'll only find that workers' unions only speak out on the issues that concern them. It's either about salary increment or conditions of work. So teachers will talk about salary increment, doctors will talk about their conditions and terms of work, but they will never come out to speak out against an injustice like the drone phenomenon. The only people that speak out against some of these issues is the Uganda Law Society. And it's because these issues fall directly under their realm, because the lawyers are the ones that go to court to defend these victims of torture. So as such, we compartment ourselves. We divide ourselves. And of course, a divided society is music to a despot who normally uses divide and rule anyway. So when you look at Sudan, it's the Sudan Professionals Association that took the lead, that actually is still in the trenches trying to manage the transition after the fall of Omar Bashir. So if our civil society feels that it is the job of politicians to bring about regime change, then we are still trying to build a democracy on a very narrow foundation. Because the democracy is not just for politicians, it is for everybody. And there is no way civil society will check power if they cannot hold the ultimate trump card of leading the charge in bringing about regime change. The workers' unions and the churches have, a very big following, actually. I think they have stronger structures than many of the political parties. The church is virtually in every parish, so it can mobilize its people through their structures to lead the charge, to involve the greatest masses and the greatest numbers of the population. Failure to do this will ultimately lead to a section of people who cannot stand this, kind of situation to take extreme measures. You remember there is when Bishop Zach Nirinje with the Black Monday activities. When Nirinje was arrested, the then Archbishop came out to say that, the Archbishop Ntagari, he came out to say, oh, Nirinje has desecrated the Quran. Why? Because he spoke out against the excesses of the regime. And because Ntagari wanted to be in the good books of the government, he comes out to condemn someone that is speaking out against injustice. But at the end of the day, anyway, we know who desecrated the Quran than the other. So the main issue that we need to understand is that bringing about a change in government through non-violent civil disobedience will not only be the work of politicians. The business community has to come on board because they are directly affected by this economic situation that is prevailing in the country. The workers, if they really want to have a regime that is responsive to their needs, they have to come on board. COSATU in South Africa was very much at the forefront of fighting the apartheid regime. So it's not the duty of politicians alone to fight to bring about democracy in Uganda. The earlier all these different groups came together for the sake of the country, the better for us. The journalists must not only be concerned about the rights of journalists. Everyone should care about everybody else's rights. We are our brothers' keepers. Thank you very much.